So you guys are able to see my screen? Okay, fine. So in general, when you run a program, so what I'm trying to explain is why do we use a log4j? Okay, so when you run a program, so when probably you will be developing in some developer using some developer tools like Eclipse or NetBeans or etc. So when you do it, you generally use a sysO statement, right? For printing or let to understand where exactly what happens in a variable or to see if the code has reached that particular location or not. Correct? So you guys use these print statements, sysO statements, system.out.println. So why do you use this? What are all the scenarios in which you guys use sysO statements? Or when would you like to use the sysO statement? You will be using in some situations, right? For example, you want to print something, you want to test if the program execution is going through that line or not. Yeah, so that is one situation. Next, others. In case I never used a sysO statement. Okay, fine. So generally, when you develop or when we all develop, we generally use a print statement to see. Obviously, the first scenario is to see if the execution has reached that line or not. Second reason is to you know see a value, to print a value, to check what is the value of that variable. So you generally give the variable as such in a print statement and see what are the values being passed to that variable. Third scenario would be when you write a try catch block when there is an exception. If you want to print or to know what exactly the exception is, if you are not familiar with e dot stack trace, so that's the another scenario when you like to print and see if it's reaching the catch block or passing through a try catch block or not. Okay, so these are the multiple scenarios in which you use a sysO statement. But all these sysO statements will be logged in the console only, and it is for a short period of time. But when you actually go to the production, you don't really run a production code from Eclipse, right? So you actually make it a jar and then you run it in a Windows machine or a Linux machine. You run it in a server, which will be in the background. So at that time, there is no way for you to actually, there is no console to view as such. There will be no place for you to actually, if something goes wrong, for you to sit and debug. Correct. So all the logs or the execution of a code has to go at some place. So how do we achieve that? So if you actually run it in a background, where would you actually see all these statements? Or is sysO statements a right way to go? Do you think that there can be a sysO statement in a production ready code? Answer is no. You cannot have any single sysO statement in your production ready code. Okay, so it can be any code. So it is not allowed to have a sysO statement. sysO statement is It's only for the developers' convenience, where you can immediately just put the statement and see the output. That's all. So when you come to the production code, you have to use loggers. What does a logger do? Logger is same as sysO statement, similar, not the same, similar as sysO statement, but it doesn't print in console. Now you can always modify it to print and over a console, but what it does is it prints over a file, as simple as that. So you generate a logs.file which contains all your statements. So that way, so even when you run your code in the background, so a log file will be generated, and the log file tells you the current status of that particular program which you are running. Okay, so that is the main reason why you use a log4j. There's nothing else. It is used only for logging your statements in a program, to be precise. Nothing else. Are we clear with why log4j? Or you want me to repeat? We will see how to write what are the items required for log4j, but in a logical manners. Do you guys understand why log4j? What about others? Lost? Okay, fine. So let's go ahead and see what are the items required for log4j. A log4j will need a specific jar again, which is already present in our Selenium package. So when you actually try, not Selenium package, in our POI jars. So if you have downloaded the POI jars, you would have got this particular file. Inside a lib, we have this log4j 1.2.17.jar. So this is a jar which we will need to uh, use a log4j. Okay, since you have already, if you have tried including the POI jars, you would already have this particular jar with you. Okay, so once you have this, you don't need anything else in the jars perspectives. So once you set this up, there is one XML file which you guys have to make. So I will send you this XML format. Okay, so this XML format defines how does this log4j work as such, what will be the pattern of the dates, and what will be the file in which it will log. So there are certain inputs which the log4j takes on a holistic perspective. And after that, there is one more concept in log4j. So there are three types of logs. So there are three types of logs in or I said three types of statements in log4j. When you use log4j, you can, when you print a statement, it can be classified into three varieties. Okay, one is a general info. So you can actually tag a statement and then print it. Okay, so a general info. Second is a debug mode. So there can be an info statement. This is how you say, you call it an information statement. You call it a debugging statement. Other one is error statement. Okay, so there's not much difference. It's just the way you tag the statement. So when you write the program, depending upon the situation where you are actually trying to put a log, you can classify that particular log into one of these statements. It can be a general info, a debug, or an error. Okay, So let's go one by one. What is an info? Okay, info is when you want to say that the first scenario, like my program has reached a particular line. Okay, so when you want that to be told by your program that I have reached a particular state place, or I am in the starting of this function, I have done executing this function. So all those kind of statements are information statements. Okay, so you generally tag them as uh, logger.info. Okay, so if you see this statement, I am in the starting of this particular function. So I just say before function in EMI calculator test. So this is a statement which actually generally used for to say that I have reached a particular line in my program. Okay, all those statements are info statements. Okay, now a debug statement would be in detail. So generally, when you go for a debug, you will say line by line, you will start explaining that, okay, this is the value I have read. This is the calculations I have made. So you also print the values of the variables which you actually calculate. So for every line, you might have a debug, or after every crucial calculation, you will have a debug statement. For example, I have read a loan amount, right? So I will actually put a debug statement stating that what is the amount I have actually read, I have saved into the variable. So if you see here, our EMI calculator example with Excel, where I'm actually reading the values from the Excel. So I'll be reading the loan amount values, interest, and terms. If I'm reading it from an Excel, every time I read, I am actually putting a debug statement over here stating what is the value I have finally read and stored. Okay, so that will be debug. Now, what is the difference? Why we have two different types of statements, info and debug? Okay, the reason being is when you actually define this XML, okay, log4j XML, you start a log4j in a normal mode or a debug mode, right? So when you start a program in a normal mode, okay, info mode, uh, your debug statements will not be printed because that will actually cause a lot of statements in your logger file. Okay, so in that case, you start the program in a log info mode where only your information statements and the error statements, if at all there are any, will be logged. None of your debug statements will be logged. Now, if you find some issue in your program, if it has abruptly stopped in middle, or you face some issues, so you would like to debug that particular program. Now, before you actually get into the code and debug, you can actually what we do is we generally go through the logs. So we start the program, the log4j in a debug mode, where all the debug statements will start getting logged into the file. Where in the program, when you have given each and every statement, if you have given each and every statement before and after each and every statement a debug, so we can literally see how the execution of the program is happening line by line, where we can actually figure out which variable the value is going wrong and the reason behind it not being functioning the way we require. Okay, so that is the main difference between information log and a debug log. So so depending upon the mode in which you will start log4j, the amount of logs which you actually put in the file varies. So, and the other reason of doing that is we don't, so logs run every time. There will be a huge set of logs which will be generated every time if you keep running the program, right? So it becomes again a maintenance, burden. So that is where you generally restrict or you keep only the things which we need. See, it doesn't really make sense for us to actually run Log4j both info and debug. So when you run in debug, both information and debug statements are logged. Okay, so if you run in info, only information statements are logged. So when I say it is running in a debug mode, ideally all kinds of logs will be logged. Okay, so it generally runs the information and debug. If it's info, it's only a info. Okay, so there is nothing like running both info and debug at the same time. So when you run debug, basically all sorts of logs will be logged. Okay, fine. Now the next is the error. Now you when you do know that what is the use of a try catch block, correct? So yes, debug alone is sufficient, but generally you put a debug statement before and after every calculation step you make. Okay, so if you actually run your program all the time in debug, the amount of logs which will be logged will be enormous. Okay, so every time you will be seeing all unnecessary logs which will be printed into your file. Okay, that is where you have two modes. One is info mode and debug mode, where in the info mode you see as long as the program is running you are fine. Okay, you don't really care about each and every detail of inputs which you are reading, and it will also affect your performance if it's a huge application as such. Okay, so that is where you have most. So when you go for production, it's always in an info mode until unless you find some issue. During development you can use a debug mode, because you will actually see all the statements which will be running. Okay, debug alone will be sufficient for development. In production it will be info until unless you find the issue. Okay, and the final thing is the error. What is an error log? Error log, again, error log will be printed both in info and debug mode. Okay, and error is generally put up in a catch block. So when you use a try catch block, it a program generally comes to a catch block if only if there is some error. So it is at that time when you actually log that error and you let the program pass, complete the complete execution. You let the program finish its execution, but you actually log that error stating that an error has occurred and this is the error. So when you actually find this error, it is when you actually shift the logger mode to debug and then you go line by line. Okay. So let's actually see the implementation of a log4j over here. So one is definitely XML file. So we'll definitely need this log4j XML. Okay. So here, the first thing you need to know is what is the file name. Okay. So whatever the file name you specify here, that will be the file name with which the log4j log file will be created. So one important thing is you can also specify the path in which it has to be created. By default, it will be created in the home directory of the project. If you have a specific path, you can give an absolute path and the log will be created in that particular path. Okay. So once you give the file name, the next is the level in which it has to be run. So you need to change this info in debug. Okay, so you will have to change it to debug mode. By default it will be info. Fine, so let's go ahead and implement it in our program which we have seen last time. Where is it? Right here. This was a program which we actually wrote using an Excel and a automated way of your logging in by reading the Excel values. Okay. So what I'm going to do is first immediately I'm going to replace all the sysO statements with logger files, logger statement, and that will be my logger.info. So whenever you feel that you need a statement to tell the viewers that or the person who is actually trying to run the program that the program has reached a particular state, you use logger.info. Okay, and the first thing you need to do is you need to initialize the variable for the logger. Okay, uh, let me just put that statement. So this is how you actually initialize a log4j statement. Okay, so you call what happened. Okay, so it will be logger. We have to give static final so that the variable will not be changed or it will not be reused at any given point of time. Okay, so what is final? I will come to that. I'll explain you with a simple example what is the final used for. Okay, so we're gonna declare it as static final. Logger is the class name. You define a variable log manager dot get logger and you specify the class name. So this will be the class name dot get class dot get name. So this is the standard syntax. You guys just have to remember it. Only thing you need to know is you have to give the class name in which you are trying to log. That's all. Okay. So once you do that, your log4j is ready to use. You have to do logger dot info and you can specify the message. Okay. Same way, you can just specify it all the places. So if I run this, so if I run this program, you can see that there will be a EMI dot. Okay, let me put login.log, which will be created in the folder. Okay, so the test has successfully executed. So I just have to refresh and here. Okay, So if you see, um, right. So if you see here, the logs are actually being generated over here. Fine. So it's a info logs. So there are three info logs, one and two and three. And so let's go ahead and actually put the debug statements. After every time I read the input and in the every iteration, and let's see how it will actually work. Okay, so I'm going to put a debug statements, and I'm going to put one more statement here stating what is the title name which I read at the end. Okay, and what else will be required? I'll put one more debug stating input number. And these are the most of the calculations and inputs which are happening right now in this program. So I have put it all this place. So let me rerun this and check. Okay. So if you see here, there is not a single debug statement which has been printed. The reason being, I have started the log4j in info mode. Now, if I want all my debug statements to be printed, I will have to start my log4j in debug mode. Okay. So now if I run, let me just clear all the statements. Now the same logs could be proof that you have actually ran the program and it has run successfully. Okay, so log files which you generate out of program play a crucial role in acting as a evidence of what's the work actually being happening behind the scene. Okay, so that is another importance of the log files. Okay. Whenever something goes wrong, this log file is the only thing which acts as a evidence of what is actually happening behind the scene. So that is another importance of this log4j. What is this? Oh, okay. That was another log4j which I was using. Hello, am I audible? Hello. Yeah. So if you see here, this is how you actually get the logs in a debug mode. Okay. Now there are other logs from other classes. Since we are also using the PyJars and PyJars, the Excel jars, and they are also using the same log4j. They have even the logs of the PyJars have been put up into this particular file. But you can always search using the class name. So if you go by class name, you can see info login automated test uh, inside pre-processing. So this is the info statement, and another info statement inside login check. So here we have the debug statement, input 1, username, password. Again, what is the title we have got out of the username password? Then we have input 2, username password, and the other one, the title which we got out of the username password, which is empty. Input 3, username and password, and it's a successful login, so we actually got a title. Input 4, username, password, and the output. Okay, and then inside post processing. So this is how in detail you will actually get the debug statements once you start log4j in a debug mode. Okay. So this is the major difference between info mode and debug mode, and the main utilization of the log4j asset. So if I clear the logs, I'm running it in info mode, where you will see only a few set of statements which actually states the condition in which the program is currently in. So I don't really have to, uh, look at the window as such. I can even keep looking at this program and figure out what is the current state of the program inside login check. So I just have to keep refreshing this log file, and I will know the program, the current state of the program. Inside postgres. So it is done. Okay. So this is the major difference, and error will be always given inside every catch block, where you say log dot error, and we just print. If you have a specific error statement, you can give the error statement, or you can just give it as int the error as such. So it will actually print all the errors which has occurred. Okay, and error will be used at all the times. So whenever the program encounters error, irrespective of a debug mode or info mode, you will be able to see the errors. So this particular tag will be error tag. Okay, are we clear with log4j? Any questions? No questions? All clear? Okay, fine. So we're gonna halt at this particular state. Now there is one or two more topics which we will see after the hands-on session. So right now we're gonna have a hands-on session where you guys will be practicing during the session time, and get back to me if you have any doubts. So I'll clarify your doubts then and there. Okay, and the assignment for you guys right now would be you guys can take this particular URL calculator.net. So we'll be starting with a basic example. Go to this calories calculator, try entering the inputs, and hit on the calculate, and try reading the inputs, output of this particular thing. the results. Clear? So you have to go to calculator.net, go to weight loss calculator. Inside this, you have calories calculator. It's a pretty useful one. And first thing, you guys write a simple Selenium program. You can read only the numbers. That is fine. Okay. So uh, you can go it in you can do this in different versions. First, you start with a JUnit where you write a straight away program to launch this, do all this test. Then you will have to convert the same program into a page object model where the interactions of this page will be written into a page object model class, and you're going to use those class handlers to inside your JUnit and execute the test case. And in third phase, you're gonna have a set of inputs which will be entered inside an Excel. You're gonna have to read the Excel inputs, enter the values one after the other, get the output, and write it back to the Excel with the outputs. So I'll be expecting three programs, each one belonging to different phases. One is a straightforward Selenium JUnit test case. Second will be in a page object model. Third will be in first and second statement. It can be a fixed one input. So you can just read the location and give one input and read the output, and use log4j for logging. So at the end of it, you guys will have to send me the program and the log file which you guys generate. Okay. So please do put try catch blocks. Okay. Make sure your program doesn't stop because of any errors, right? So in phase 1 and phase 2 it will be a single input and a single output. In phase 3, when you guys use an Excel, have some 4 5 records of different values, and generate the respective output for the inputs which you put up in the Excel, and the way you write into your output should be generated using the program, just the way I showed in the example. Okay. So this will be the three programs. We have time for today and tomorrow. So this is a practice session. So please do practice right now, so that whenever you face any issues, I'll be there for you guys to resolve it out. Okay? Are we clear? If you guys have any doubt at any point, please let me know right now. I'm there. So you guys can log into the machines and start creating the code. Now there might be a issue of systems getting slowed down. So I'm gonna launch few more instances. The people who are not able to log in can log into these additional machines, and you guys can start the practice part. Okay. So please do log into the machines and start practicing. I'll be online. So whenever you have doubt, please ping me. I'll clarify it then and there. Okay. Let's start. So these are the additional machines. Uh, these are the additional machines which, if and all anybody is facing any systems who are not able to log in, so you guys can log into any of these machines. Okay.